Greetings and welcome to another bi-weekly update. A pleasure to be here with you today. I hope you had a great weekend. My name is Carlos Salinas, and I'm the Regional Director for the U.S. Soybean Export Council in the Americas. Before we get started, and as we always do, we'd like to recognize USEC's wide and diverse membership. Within this membership, we have soybean processors, soybean exporters, seed companies, equipment manufacturers, railroad surveyors, brokers, among many other important stakeholders and funding sources. And we never forget the support and contribution that we receive from the U.S. soybean farmer. Without that support, this presentation would not be possible. We have a brief agenda today. We want to talk about Brazilian weather and crop size updates. We want to touch on soybean meal exports, soybean meal quality, and we want to talk about vegetable oil prices and relative prices as well. So let's go ahead and get started. Last week, we also touched on Brazilian weather, and we shared a map with you. The map that we have updated for you is for covering the windows of November 8th through December 7th. And it is precipitation anomalies in millimeters in different parts of Brazil. And as you can tell, the situation hasn't necessarily improved. I think it's remained about the same, and with some changes in the south, maybe, and some changes in the northern part of Brazil. But overall, the situation it's not ideal. Some of the reports that we have seen from a journal called Global Rural, for which you can sign up for. It's a very, very good journal. And I have translated some of the comments here, but in one of the reports, they state that with excessive rainfall in the south and drought in the Midwest, the 2024 harvest started poorly. So obviously watching the evolution moving forward is going to be critical. And again, when we touch on the south of Brazil, some of the reports indicate that they have had some climatic disasters causing significant losses, close to $5.7 billion. So again, it is kind of interesting to see a very different shift from what we had last year in Brazil. We had a drought in the south. Now we have excessive rains in the south, and we have the drought more in the central and northern Brazil. With that in mind, the crop estimates have been variable. I like to share a crop estimate that it was put together by a company called Marek Solutions. This was prior to the USDA report. It was sent to me earlier in the week. And, you have estimates reaching as high as 165.9 million metric tons and as low as 150.6, 150.7 million metric tons on the low range. And the average or the mean was close to 161 million metric tons, which I believe is what most people have been using as a reference. Obviously, after the USDA report, the USDA did lower their number by 2 million metric tons to 161. CONAB in Brazil, the agency put their number 160, dropping that number as well. And I think one of the very well recognized analysts and economists in Brazil, Mercado, they dropped their number to 158 million metric tons. I'm not here to say what the actual number is. My job is just to show you the diversity and in numbers that we have seen, and I think we can agree that the evolution has been to reduce some of those numbers slightly. And again, we'll see what the weather brings going forward. So let's switch subjects. Let's talk about U.S. soybean meal exports. And I have to admit that I have been impressed and continue to remain impressed with the pace of U.S. Soybean meal exports. Based on the weekly export sales that were reported on last Thursday, and that covers the week ending on November 30th of 23, accumulated soybean meal exports out of the U.S. Reach a number close to 2.2 million metric tons, a significant increase to last year, 25%, but also 2.2 million metric tons at this time is actually a record for the U.S. We have never shipped so much soybean meal before. It is great to see. Now, we can also see the outstanding sales where we have certainly more commitment. So all in all, we can say that the U.S. has 46% of its export program already committed. And keep in mind, the export program, according to the USDA, is close to 13.8, 13.9 million metric tons. So almost half of it is already done. I think it's something to keep in mind. When we take a look at the regions, we see the EU with smaller volumes, but they're 58% ahead of last year. We see Asia. Asia is actually 61% ahead of last year with much larger volumes for sure. And when we take a look at Africa, the numbers might be smaller, but they have more than doubled their shipments year to date, something to monitor. And when we look at the Western Hemisphere, Latin America, our customers in Latin America are 16% ahead of last year. So they're a good pace, but certainly below some of the other countries. And I think what's important to keep in mind, at least when you compare to Asia, Asia not only has shipped a lot, but they already have a remaining of 1 million metric tons of an outstanding book, further, again, increasing that outstanding number versus the previous year. And we look at Latin America, we are almost slightly below what we were at last year on outstanding sales. So again, I think what we have to keep in mind is that a lot is being committed, and it's critical that our key customers don't miss those key logistical windows and commit well ahead of time, because the program is moving and almost half of it is already done. So let's change subjects. Let's talk about soybean meal quality. As many of you know, we received data from Evonik on soybean meal quality, many attributes from different parts of the world. And we received the data that ended in November of this year. So it's the most, I would say, updated. And I like to compare, in this particular case, one of the attributes that drew my attention, and that is the soybean meal sugar content by origin year to date. And I think the data is interesting because it does highlight how the U.S. has a very high sugar content versus other origins, including Argentina, Bolivia, Brazil, and Paraguay. And we all know not all the sugar is digestible by the animal, and we know that on different stages, animal digest in different ways, according to what I've learned from our experts. I'm no nutritionist, but I think when we're looking at changing from one origin to the other, it is important to keep in mind what the contribution on energy means in your formulation, because it might make a significant difference, and some may or may not be aware. So as always, we encourage you to reach out to our nutritionist, Maria Mayorga, if you need more information, and we can certainly help you sharing some more of the data that we have available. But again, sugar content, energy contribution of U.S. soybean meal, I think it's something to be considered as you formulate, and particularly as you're making a decision between one origin and the other. I know that some of the countries in the Pacific side of South America, because of the Panama Canal situation, are now looking at other origins as alternatives. So important to keep in mind. This other set of data, which I thought it was neat to share with you, it looks at the crude protein. And we always like to look beyond crude protein, but many of you still like to see it. And this data tells us what the evolution of crude protein has been from 2020 through 2023. Now, the 2023 data is not complete yet. It's only going through November. But you can see that compared to last year, we're very similar on crude protein, very similar to 2021, and actually, obviously, an improvement to 2020. And I think one thing I like to highlight, though, is that the U.S. Soybean meal has always known to have a very low standard deviation. We have a very consistent product, and I'm impressed with the 2023 number. That standard deviation is even getting better. So you're getting more consistency that you were getting in the previous years from the U.S. And When we take a look at the sugar contents, as we mentioned earlier, we do have a higher sugar content compared to other origins, but we've also seen that number increase from 2020, 21, and 2022 and 23. So I think it's important. And just like we did on crude protein, we also see a better standard deviation. We see better consistency, which is good. So, you know what you're getting, I guess, is the key takeaway. Let's shift subjects and let's talk about vegetable oil prices. And I think this is an important topic because a great part of the crush margin contribution comes from the value of soybean oil. And as the value of soybean oil shifts, if everything else stays constant, it could have an impact on meal prices as well. So, and I wanted to share this chart with you just to give you a look on how different vegetable oils have evolved over time. And as I always do, I'm going to normalize the price of different vegetable oils at 100% as of January 1. And we're going to see that percentage evolution over time. So let's get started and let's have a quick discussion on this. Canola oil is down actually 30% year to date, a significant break. When we take a look at Argentine soybean oil is down 27% year to date. And I think we have to keep that in mind because the cheaper the relative value is or the evolution over time, we see a greater propensity of flows to take place. Those areas of surplus will try to find markets in the areas of more deficit or higher values. So we have to be aware of that. When we take a look at Chinese rapeseed oil, that's down 21%. And when we take a look at U.S. soybean oil, that is down 18%. So I think the interesting part of it all is that when you take a look at crude palm oil is down 13%. So we see an interesting development where soft oils are getting more competitive in relative value when we take a look at the numbers year to date, trying to find a home, and that could mean different things. Maybe we'll begin having more competition against palm oil, but also those cheaper soft oils will try to find a market and find its inclusion in different locations if the situation remains the same. For the exception of obviously Chinese soybean oil remains actually in relative terms stronger than the other ones. It's only down 10% year to date. All these calculations are dollarized, just for your knowledge. So we are comparing apples to apples. And I think the interesting part is that crude oil, and I'm going to say crude oil is not down 10%. I apologize. It's down 7.5%. But there is this thesis that all vegetable oils have a tendency to converge in the long term with the values of energy. And I think this year it seems a little bit different. It seems that soft oils have actually been lowered in price and try to be more competitive. And I don't know what the future will bring, but I think if you're a soybean meal buyer, if soft oils in general remain weak in price and they remain lower, it's going to be very difficult for you to be able to have a more competitive soybean meal price, especially if soybean oil prices drop further, or if we lose oil share. If the contribution of soybean oil is less for that crush margin calculation, soybean meal prices will have a tendency to have more support. Again, something to keep in mind, and it's one of those variables which I believe is very important to track, and we'll continue to track it every month or so for your reference. I hope the information shared was valuable. I don't want to exceed my time of almost 15 minutes. I wish you a very successful week. Thanks for taking the time and for listening to us. And please continue to send us your feedback so we can improve this presentation. Have a great week. See you in 2 weeks.